Hello hero, it's Lucy Lannon. We're going to do a reading today sort of regarding your well-being. You'll know more than me if you've seen the title and description, but I want to say this is something to do with your emotional health, your spirituality, or your physical health, daily habits, that kind of thing. Just something in the well-being camp. We are using this beautiful blood tarot, which I'm going to review soon on the channel, but it is on Etsy if you want to grab a copy. It is absolutely amazing. Not sponsored, I just love it. And it feels like using a tarot deck and an oracle deck because of all the Rorschach images, which I do enjoy. So I'm going to pop a few more reversals in because they give us 78 extra positive meanings. And then we'll get to it, shall we? What do I want to say? My throat's really blocked, and I did pick blue calcite as our sort of helping stone, so this may be relevant to communication, or if it's not at your end, there may be like a lack of it from somebody else in a way that's significant, and I want you to kind of bear that in mind. You know, if you've been ghosted, or you're having trouble with a spouse that's sort of stonewalling a bit, or there's someone at work pissing you off in the way they communicate, anything like that, I want you to have that in the back of your head while we talk about what's going on, because I do feel it's relevant. I'm actually just going to take a drink. I'll mute it because my throat really is. There's something about blue calcite, the throat chakra, etc., that is really significant here. There we go, hot drink should open me up. What I find interesting is that as I did that, the Knight of Swords was at the bottom of the deck, and that tends to be about swift communication coming in, or a quick message, or perhaps even a hasty message, or something like that. Eight of Cups coming out, that's about walking away from something, so I don't know whether all of that is relevant, but let's bring it back to you, to your well-being. And apparently to your stability, with the Four of Wands beginning us. And the World, again. Yeah, there's something here about, I want to say location, and feeling good in the space that you're in, versus feeling unhealed. That's interesting. Pulling from the bottom, so there's something more straightforward ahead for you than perhaps what you've been experiencing. And then we've got Six of Wands reversed and a Devil reversed. So there's also the end to bad habits for you or somebody else that you're around or involved with. There's like a breaking of a possible addiction, or a feeling of being chained to a person or a place. Let's get more. Nine of Swords reversed, Fool reversed, Queen of Wands, Knight of Swords reversed, and this one wants to pop out, which is a Two of Swords. I do feel the bottom of the deck wants to talk, and it's a Sun reversed. Right, that just tells me that there is something about your happiness, your overall well-being, which is obviously the topic of the reading, which has been delayed but not stopped, right? If you thought that there was a situation around you which is completely over, I am here to say that that is not the case, if you didn't want it to be over anyway. You know, it's like it's saying that there is not an outcome of complete sadness. The possibility that was there, or would have been there with the Sun in the upright, is still there, with a bit of work, because the Eight of Pentacles was under it. But it's just sort of delayed, deferred. The financial deferral reading that I just put out, maybe for you as well. I'll make sure to put that before this so that that makes sense. Okay. Let's get into this a bit more. I'll just be 1 minute. My little Chucky egg, my little flower. I sound like my stepdad, so what's that indicating? There might be something in all this to do with a father figure, right? Or to do with like sacred masculine type energies. I'm not feeling like DMDF necessarily, but certainly, feeling fathered is what I'm hearing. That's a big thing with this. Let me take a minute and then we'll get into it. Okay, right. I'm sorry if there was a quick cut there, but I had to really take a minute with these because they're not as simple as they seem. There's kind of a few factors weighing in, and it will make sense to you in a more individualistic way because this is a broad general reading for a large audience. Hopefully, please subscribe. So, take what resonates, leave the rest, as with all these kind of general readings. And if you want much more specificity because I've hit on something that seems right, then do book with me, in the link down below. What I want to say is that there's something very tied to a location or a home or being in place somewhere with the Four of Wands in the world. Your long-term stability, your feeling of home as a kind of legacy thing, or as somewhere that you treat as your holiday, that you retreat to after other concerns. There's the question of whether your home is in fact a sanctuary at the moment. There's also a big thing here with these sort of two figures here about whether somebody else is your home or is your definition of home or stability. Bear in mind as well that the Four of Wands for some of you can be a card of marriage. So there is a question of whether having somebody in particular around in a more regular way is better or worse for your home life. So for some of you, you want to be with somebody in the home and you're realizing you'd like to live with them, or that you want to see them more often within a home unit. For others of you, this will be a complete flip side and you'll already be married or in a long-term partnership with someone that you're now realizing you don't want to live with, because in living with them, your home can no longer be a sanctuary for you. It's no longer a kind of a safe place to come back to and chill out, right? There is a sense that you've already had some form of guidance on this, not just because that card is buzzing my hand off, wow, but also because this looks like an insect with antenna to me. So it's sort of receiving impressions from the divine or from your gut or whatever it is that you choose to believe we're looking into here. There's also an extension to other people of that energy with this kind of wingspan stuff and the legs kind of moving out, in terms of you perhaps trying to discuss that you have this uneasy feeling about things with other people. But I don't know that that's lent any more stability to the situation, because I think if their feedback had been truly useful, you might not be here and you might not be finding me and seeing this, which is, hopefully something that's synchronistically happening to you to kind of sort some of this out in a mental way, right? Because that's what tarot does. It may also be that you've tried to reach out to this person that you see as your world or miss, or that somebody in the home that you don't feel connected with is ever present, and you've been trying to extend your reach to someone else even. And there's no judgment on this channel if there's something like that going on. But I feel that if it is going on, it's not yet reached a practical stage. It's much more of a kind of psychic feeling of extension to that person, perhaps dreaming about them, perhaps thinking about them, contemplating what it would say if you had communication with them, that kind of thing. Equally, if that's not a third person and this is about this sort of counterpart or not counterpart predicament over here, I think you've kind of planned, maybe even with friends, how you would put this, but you're not yet in a mode where you can really discuss it with any kind of eloquence or skill, because you feel so tense, you feel quite unhealed, quite like you can't be your full self around this issue. The Star in reverse with the Two of Swords just makes me think of a general indecision from a person who feels very unhealed, whether or not that's the case, because a lot of you who are subscribers and who've sort of spoken to me as clients, as friends, you are quite on it with this channel, right? You're quite, I think generally my base thus far, though small, are quite self-aware and quite spiritually aware. They're doing the work, they're looking into the shadow. Many of them are in therapy for positive and not sort of fixing reasons. So there's a process of that going on, and you are indecisive, but you know that it's not yet the time to express whatever that is in a communicative way, which is why, again, my throat's climbing up. 2 seconds while I take a sip. yeah, there's a struggle to articulate what it is that you mean without getting into a more emotional place, because for me, a cracked throat is not just blocked communication, but also the sort of wavering in your voice when you try to say something that's difficult to express, right? So because I'm experiencing that in my body, that might be how you're feeling. With this Nine of Swords in reverse, I think you're not at a stage of complete extremity with this. You're not in total insomnia, total depression. The world isn't coming crumbling down. But with this being a well-being reading, this is just sort of Spirit's pointers on how things could be better in that realm. And I feel that there is a knowledge with you that in some ways it's difficult to breathe in the situation that you're in. But there's almost like, with these sort of lung-like things being inverted, it's like I'm hearing a person say, yeah, when I think about it, I get a full-on panic attack and I can no longer breathe. But when that happens, I just lie down and I'm all right again. And I think the message from me, my immediate reaction, and indeed Spirit's reaction, is like, okay, like, pleased for you that you can sort it out in a logical way or with CBT or whatever. But do you want to be living in a process where you're having to do that on a regular basis? You know, whatever regular basis means to you. It might only be every couple of months, but I don't know about you, dude, but I don't want to spend my remaining years on this earth having a panic attack even that frequently. So there's a sense of you telling other people that you're managing things just fine because you're only having a kind of inner meltdown every so often, and it's only when you think about certain things. So you just don't think about those things, or you just go through a certain process when it happens, to which the people around you may be expressing, and certainly I am expressing, all right, but like, maybe you could just actually have a lifestyle where you'd never feel like that, and wouldn't that be preferable? Like, wouldn't you rather heal this completely, sort this out completely, instead of dealing with something that is symptomatic of a larger problem? Even if that is just, you know, a transiting sense of unease around feeling like you have somewhere to go or be home-wise and feeling like you have a safe place. I personally would like to just feel that that's resolved every day, right? So this is your, if things don't seem that bad and you're wondering why you were called to this reading, this is Spirit saying, because even though things aren't terrible, they could still be better than what they are. And that's kind of why you're here. And if things are really extreme, this is an indication that you're dismissing that to other people, perhaps to make them feel safer, because these two cards together are about safety, stability, and also about kind of not bothering another party in some way. And it's like, okay, how long are you going to do that? How ill do you have to make yourself to think this is a situation that does need resolution? How bad do your panic attacks have to get, you know? At what frequency would you consider it something that needs to be resolved? The strange thing about all of this being sort of communicative in whatever way is that there is this full figure here which looks correct in reverse and is sort of, to me, this is like a sort of Rorschach clown face, but blending out into the rest of the world in that sort of Mothwing way. It's like a clown that's not a clown. And it makes me think of theatrical masks, or the sort of mask that you wear in masquerades at Venice, where it's somebody going unseen. So weirdly, although this is a full card, it's giving me Page of Swords energy of somebody, perhaps a third party if that did resonate, spying on you, having a look in, keeping watch. That may be something that makes you feel uncomfortable and plays into your well-being. Or for some of you, it may be something you're relieved to hear, that somebody that you are sort of building up to speaking to is already observing to see whether you're ready to talk, right? I don't think this person is necessarily going to reach out first, because the Fool in reverse is seeing something as risky business or a bit mad. They may even have been caught watching you, or caught sort of in some form of contact which was a bit Nine of Swords. and they're feeling like, okay, I'm not going to bother them again because I just appear crazy now. I come across in the wrong way. So I think the action will be from your end, but also I feel that in observing you very silently in whatever way, be that online or in terms of just noticing certain things in conversations, and I'm getting hiccups. So that's confirmation that this person is hypervigilant for the sorts of words you choose. Whatever way this is going on, it's a big risk for this person to be watching, and that's why the silence. And it's sort of, the mouth of this clown is like, it looks a bit abnormal to me. It looks like alien makeup almost, or the sort of, like there's been a recent trend on Pinterest of like drag makeup that's really sort of ethereal or alien based or just really like non-human. And that is totally in my wheelhouse because, aliens, wicked, massive sci-fi fan, but it's giving me that vibe, which makes me think that this is like an imposition of silence almost painted on this person. It's not their usual mode to just sit and watch. They might be somebody who's very vocal, right? Even if this is the person you're currently living with, it might be that they're too vocal and they've suddenly gone silent, and you're like, okay, that's a new mode for you, but it relates to all of this. I feel they know what's going on with your stability, but they're not speaking up and you're still working up to the right words. So there's something going on here where like they're just having to watch at the minute. And for some of you, this is a love reading, and this is like somebody watching to see whether you're available or to see whether you've moved on from the idea of them or something like that. Hence the silence, because they don't want to make themselves known, or at least not in a way that's sort of inviting a full verbal back and forth yet. Because I think partly the Fool is here because they feel they've made a fool of themselves in some way. So take that as it resonates and adapt as to which sort of version of the situation you felt drawn to. Okay, Six of Wands, but it's in reverse, and it looks like the Six of Wands, but in reverse, with this kind of victory banner and what looks like a sort of palanquin or something. And then clarified by the Queen of Wands. So this is, I feel like there is shit to celebrate for you, right? There are recent victories for you that are actually quite significant. I don't know whether you've had a new start, or you've just got a new job, or changed your appearance in some way, or perhaps made a group of new friends, or there's something kind of come in for you that has been difficult to build up to and is quite unprecedented and should be acknowledged. But it's almost like this feeling that you don't have a safe place, I want to say after work or after socializing or something like that, that is truly like your space. It's stopping you from looking back at your recent achievements or even stuff that you're just generally thankful for, because this will be going up pre-Thanksgiving and probably the algo will boost it around that time. It's like the stuff that you want to say, I appreciate this. This was a job well done. This is a victory lap. You don't feel safe to do that, or you're not. The Queen of Wands in the upright should be a mode of celebration. It's a kind of, it's the energy of sensualism, actually. It's being indulgent. It's being happy, but in a way that is very cognizant of what the self needs. So it's perhaps that you haven't had time to pamper or really sit and reflect on anything that's going well for you. And that has led again to this underlying feeling of things are right, but not quite right. And I don't feel at home. This can also be if you identified with living with someone that you're not 100% happy with at the moment, that their energy is very sexual, whereas your sexual energy is blocked. It's almost like these two strands coming up from the card here are crossed over here. It's like a no, not tonight. I can't, I'm sorry. So I don't know whether you're too tired or this is just reflective of this feeling that things aren't quite right. Because in order to be happily sexual with someone, we have to feel that they are meeting our needs on several levels, and that we're in like a a place that is conducive to that as well, you know, that we're in an environment where we feel relaxed enough to do that stuff. And there's something here about you saying no to either someone else's sexuality or perhaps even to your own, or if that's not the case and you're quite sexually active, there is essentialism missing from it. There is an intimacy with self and with it, what you actually want versus what kind of gets the job done in that respect. There's like a block there. And again, like the sacral chakra, where that block would occur is kind of one up from the root and from talking about home and identity. And like I say, you may also resonate with the financial reading that I put out, which speaks to those kinds of issues from a more monetary lens, but also talks about feeling emotionally abundant and how not feeling that way can potentially block your money or block your career or make you think you're less capable than you are sometimes. And indeed how that shows up in intimate relationships as well, because there is always kind of a feedback of what we put out and what we receive in both directions. The Devil in Reverse, as I said earlier, is about breaking a kind of habit. What's interesting to me is that it is an echo visually of this Fool card. So there is something about, it's either that you're giving up doing something yourself in order to tap into the energy of whoever this person is, if you want to reach out to them, or if this is someone that's suddenly gone silent who you weren't quite happy with. I want to say that part of the reason for that unhappiness is an addictive dynamic between you. Take that as it resonates. It can be anything from we're a bad influence on each other in this way to one or both of us is addicted to something, all the way over to I feel like my more individualist self when I'm not around this person, because there is an energy of codependency there, right? So this is an independence from something that has bonded you to not just another person, but another mode of behaviours. And it's either something you have to liberate from in order to come into verbal contact with someone who is currently silent, or it's something that you have to analyse within an existing dynamic in order to break a pattern that means that you can communicate properly about all of these things and that you can step into your healing, your well-being in a way that is collaborative with someone and not actively blocked by who you're around. It may even be both, right? Because again, broad reading, take it as it resonates. You could have someone in your environment that's stopping you from kind of developing in a healing way, simultaneous to somebody around you that you know if you broke some habits, it would be easier to talk to, right? So again, you do you. With the King of Swords in reverse, this is, again, feeling like you don't have the words to quite express what it is that's going on with you for the moment. There's something here about breath work as well, or for some of you I'm hearing swimming, or something involving getting out of breath. Could even be sex, actually, that is impeding progress in the overall sense. So if you're somebody who is, for instance, a marathon runner, and you've been doing training every day, and you find that as a result of doing that in the morning maybe, and then going to work, when you come home in the evening, this feeling of not being at home is worse because you're tired, or you feel like you can't have discussions that need to happen with whoever because you're wiped out. This is your sign to say maybe cut back on whatever physical activity it is that's affecting the breath. And you'll notice, I mean, I always have breathlessness because of a disability, but it's coming out a bit more as I'm talking, right? I'm getting breathless just talking to you. So there is, again, confirmation that whatever this is, whether it's, you know, cycling, swimming, sex, talking too much even, with people that potentially drain on your energy, there's something to do with breathing, speaking, the intake of oxygen and the expelling of carbon dioxide in some way that is holding you back from breaking a habit and indeed from your broader healing. This is all quite sort of negative, so I mean, I'm not against that because it is like a sort of shadow reading in a way, but let's get some stuff about what you can do in terms of movement in a positive direction. What's your advice? I'm going to flip these so you know that I'm shuffling properly, because they were picture way up, which I know some of you don't like. Okay, so we've got a Nine of Pentacles reversed, a Page of Pentacles. Yeah, for some of you this really is a love reading. And I want to say this guy. Yeah. Which is a Four of Cups. Right, for many of you, you need to make an offer to another person, or you need to come into a space where a dialogue can happen. Because the Nine of Pentacles is a very single card. Even if you're paired off, you may feel very single, or you may be operating in the mode of a single person whilst being in a relationship. So there is an offer with the Page of Pentacles that needs to happen, a communication that needs to come forward from your end, and the Four of Cups is a literal offer in order to make you feel a bit more resolved in what to do next, I should say. If this isn't anything vaguely romantic and you don't live with someone and you're not looking to, or that bit's all sorted out for you or whatever, this is just saying that whoever it is that you need to come into dialogue with, you're kind of not in the mode right now that would be conducive to that. So if it's a friend, you've been out of touch with your friendships in general for a while, or if it's at work, you're acting like somebody who doesn't work there in order to kind of reclaim your own time. And that is not beneficial for getting into this conversation, making the offer of, hey, here's what I've been thinking and feeling, and in a more practical way, because it's Pentacles. Here are the steps I see taking in the future. What do you think? With the Four of Cups, whatever situation this relates to in terms of another person, what's weird is that you need to go in with the idea that they're going to refuse you, reject you, say that they don't see eye to eye with you. This is all part of your practical Pentacles planning, but it's also a preparation so that whatever happens in either direction, you feel healed after this conversation. It's no good going into a particular dialogue with somebody with the idea that the objective of the dialogue is for it to go one way and then you immediately feel better, conditional upon the results of that. Because unfortunately, as some of you may notice, there is another way that conversation can go. And then what happens to the conditionality of your own healing and well-being, right? So what I want you to do in a very grounded way, in a very practical Pentacles way, perhaps even again, going back to what seems frequent on this channel at the minute and doing a kind of pro-con list or a journal or something, is to look at this in terms of how your well-being is absolutely rad, whichever way it goes, right? To make lists of, if this person takes it this way, it's excellent because I do this next. If this person takes it the opposite way, it's excellent because I do this next. Have a plan in place so that you're not quite as frantic emotionally when you are expressing whatever needs to be expressed. That's what I want to say. And also, if you do feel the need to reach out again to perhaps different sets of friends, different family members, in the way that you did extend before, I think that having had this reading, having seen things, clarified things mentally for yourself a bit more, that is going to be a different process. But perhaps because this time you draw upon different people or different resources, right? You do things slightly differently. You then take that advice and you go, right, this is the way I want to come across. These are the issues that need to be brought up in terms of me feeling out of sorts in this particular place or setup. And this is the way I'm going to express it with new knowledge, both from this reading and from any conversations that I've had with other people to sort of weigh in on what they would do, right? Because sometimes that's the best way forward. And with this four, what I'm seeing is two people kind of holding hands or dancing together. So this is like referring to a connection that's already very strong in your life, that already makes you feel at home, if you are privileged enough to have that. To ask their opinion in some way, what it is that you need to say next, or what it is that you need to prioritize during this communication. For some of you, if you feel really isolated, and I know some people on this channel will, or stumbling on it will, If you don't feel there's anyone to talk to about this, going to the rest of my channel and looking for a relevant reading, or going to another tarot reader and saying, I have a message to get across and I'm not sure how to do that. Ooh, don't know whether you heard that, but there's a very loud plane outside. So this may be someone overseas from where you are, right? That's confirmation. But yeah, going to somebody in that sort of semi-professional setting and saying, what would you recommend, is a really positive thing. And that can be done through a YouTube search. It can be done through pressing the shuffle on the lucky dip of my channel, which is in the description, hopefully. Or it can be like going to somebody and paying them for a reading that pertains to exactly this. Again, shops down below, but it doesn't have to be me, right? There's just this thing of, if you don't feel there's someone else to turn to, there always is in a spiritual sense, and Spirit is really emphasising that. But I think that this communication is going to be positive in the sense that if you have a goal in mind for however it turns out, there is going to be a certain satisfaction and kind of restful feeling because this 9. Once you've completed it, whichever way it goes, because you will have said your piece. And again, this reading really was kind of about communication. Now you'll notice that as I was talking, I was still shuffling, which makes me think that there needs to be 2 more cards, I'm going to say. This one and this one. The Tower, that's interesting. And a Knight of Wands in reverse. This is kind of a caveat to that advice, is a bit of a warning, right? Particularly if you are, I want to say between 2 women, because I see 2 female figures here, both without heads. So this is like, if you're watching and you're attracted to women, or there are 2 women involved in some way, them being headless is like, you can't read their thoughts, right? So this could go in one of 2 directions. And the Tower, as we know in tarot readings, is a kind of temporary crisis or catastrophe state in order to reach a new understanding, which one wouldn't have been able to get without the Tower. In fact, after the Tower comes the Star in the upright. So it's only through going through this process of potential rejection, aggravation, awkward conversation, maybe another kind of panic attack type situation, to get through the chat, that you are going to feel better overall, right? And with Knight of Wands, this is speaking to an energy that in the upright would be very impulsive, very passionate, very sort of, it's like a sort of Aries in the shadow feeling of just trying something out because it's on your mind in that very childlike way, rather than putting the due attention into the thing because you feel passionate towards it, right? So this is saying the way to avert disaster within this conversational thing, or within this slight tweak of environment that needs to happen for you, in this breaking of certain habits and certain influences, and maybe even this sort of stopping whatever this physical habit is with this King of Swords, in order to interrupt that pattern successfully rather than chaotically and dramatically, one needs to take a measured approach. It's no good rushing in with a message of passion to somebody if this is a love reading. It's equally no good rushing in a sort of quick fire, impulsive, Aryan way. There is a real need to ground this in the more Pentacles energy, and indeed a more emotional take with this corpse, before you articulate it to a broader audience, even in terms of going to a psychic or a friend or something like that to talk about it, right? I don't want you to immediately click off this reading and then go do that in whatever mood you're in, because this does speak of kind of moodiness and impulsivity, especially with a watery card as well. It's like Aries meeting Cancer in a way that's very chaotic, and I speak to my own chart when I say that. But, you know, those 2 energies don't necessarily blend well, and there needs to be thought from both the passionate side and the sort of nurturing sides of your personality that come to a kind of equilibrium that is more broadly expressed. Now Jean wants to say something because I'm wearing the ring and she is buzzing it at me. Okay. I put it on all kinds of fingers before I decided to do this reading. This one always stays on here because it's a kind of soulmatey symbol for me. This one wanted to be on my middle finger, and what I almost want to do is that, right? And I'm not going to do it at the screen for obvious YouTube reasons, but I'm not doing it at your reading either. What needs to be added from Jean's perspective, and Jean is a loved one of mine that passed on, by the way, is you're going to piss some people off. You're going to break some eggs to make an omelette here. There is no path in this sort of pro-con choice dichotomy thing where you don't annoy somebody because they're out of their comfort zone then. But there is a way forward wherein kind of saying, I am prioritising my well-being and stuff you if you don't like it, in a kinder way than that, because Jean was very kind, but in being in the mindset of like, I'm going to piss someone off, but this is about me at the end of it. This is about my long-term feelings of home stability, perhaps even marriage, and life turning out the way I want it. In order to get to that energy, I am in breaking bonds with some stuff, going to annoy some people, going to inconvenience some people around me. And that is an okay thing to temporarily embrace, albeit in a very kind fashion. I also think of Jean being surrounded by cats at all times. And cat energy is very much, again, it's in this sort of pleasurable, sensual thing that's been a block for you. It's luxuriating in the things that you enjoy, that you want. And something that's been on my mind today, for one reason or another, is the question of, if this was your last day on Earth, how would you spend it? Who would you spend it with? What things would you deprioritise? What other people's baggage would you kind of say doesn't really matter in the scope of things? And I'm not saying that to invoke a fear of death or to say that you have a shorter time here or anything like that. It's just a good framework for saying, if you want to be real about what you prioritise and what makes you feel like life is worthwhile, condense it to a day or a week or a year and say, what is it about my environment that would be staying or going? And what is it that I would be indulging in this cat-like or Queen of Wands type energy that I feel unable to in the environment that I'm currently dealing with? What are the steps that I need to take to break away from old patterns in order to embrace those last day or last week or last year things? And I think maybe the reason I need to be so harsh as to use that example is that you've been very comfortable in the mode of perhaps pleasing other people or just getting by. And again, telling other people like, well, I do have the odd panic attack, but it's all right because I just do this. Or like coping so that you're not a bother. And what Spirit really wants to impart, Jean especially, and you can thank her for this reading if you want to in your own way. But it's like, if all of that couldn't matter because time was at a crunch, what would you do? Because I bet you it would be very different to the mode that you've been operating in, right? And it may sort of cut out some activities that are a bit stressful at the moment, right? Because if you only had a day, you're not going to spend it going for a run necessarily. And it may piss off some people that have been getting on your wick anyway, as we say around these parts, or that have been in conflict with how you want to spend your time habitually in that sort of Virgoan sense. Or even people, places, things, jobs, etc. that put you into a state of panic, however temporary. Our last days, our last weeks, our last years on Earth don't have room for that stuff. Or if they do make room, then it's kind of a sadder time, right? And I want you to think in those really drastic terms, purely to get yourself into the mindset of what stays and what goes if I'm thinking about me. Because my sense is that you don't always position yourself as central to your own life. And that's why there is a block to sensualism and indulgence and enjoyment for you, and also of just feelings of safety, because there's almost a sense that you've never prioritized having a roof over your head and having a safe place to go. It's always been like, well, I have a place to live, I'm better off than these people. I should be grateful. I'm going to carry on. Like, it's almost like home, tick, checkbox, let's move on. But what really would help your well-being at the moment is for the place that you live, or the people that you're around in that environment, or the kind of environments you choose to be in, to be ones that are enriching and actively healing and actively calm, peaceful. I'm thinking of a comment that someone made when they came into my home very recently. And I had, nice music on and certain lighting, whatever, just because I like those things. And this person just said, this is so soothing to be in. I need to make my place more soothing. And I feel like you could be that person, hi. Or it's something that you need to happen in your own environment, right? Is it clean? Is it nice smelling? Is it lit in a way that makes you feel cozy? Is it a place that prepares you very well from stressful things that you have to do? Are your clothes laid out for the morning? Is your work organised? Are your running shoes by the door for when you need to go so that you don't fall back into not going? All these kinds of things, right? And it seems relatively unimportant, but maybe it's a Cancerian stellium talking, but these things really do affect your well-being, and it's time to look at them in greater detail and have difficult conversations around what preserving your own sanctuary means to you. I hope that was useful to you. If it was, please like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. I'm a small channel, I'd like to get big, mainly because I tend to read in person and I would like to make my reading audience more global. So if you can share me with whoever you know that's into tarot, etc., I would absolutely love that and really appreciate the effort. Commenting and engagement is also super helpful to the algo. So if you want to tell me how this hit or what it is that you're going to be working on, I'd love to know, and it might give me some tips for feeling better in my own realm as well, or it might help out other people watching this. But I hope that whatever your level of engagement, and whether you kind of fully enjoyed this reading or not, that you consider coming back to the channel in the future, and that you sort out whatever needs sorting out here, and that your home and your future are both restful spaces where you can feel truly in touch with what it is that you want to be doing and want to be feeling at any given time. Take care.